Hello everyone. Firstly, I would like to thank you for the support I have received over the last year. My channel has grown significantly and I appreciate every comment, like and subscription. I have decided to start an English is Love Instagram account where I will also post English related content. Please give me a follow at English_is.love. In this next video presentation, I will cover the poem An African Thunderstorm by David Rubadiri. The following is some background information on David Rubadiri. David Rubadiri was born in Malawi in 1930. He attended school in Uganda. He studied English literature in both Uganda and in the UK. In 1964, he held the position of Malawi's ambassador to the USA, and he was a lecturer at the University of Nairobi in Kenya. Let us read through the poem. From the west, clouds come hurrying with the wind, turning sharply here and there, like a plague of locusts whirling, tossing up things on its tail like a madman chasing nothing. Pregnant clouds ride stately on its back, gathering to perch on hills like dark sinister wings. The wind whistles by and trees bend to let it pass. In the village, screams of delighted children toss and turn in the din of whirling wind. Women, babies clinging on their backs, dart about in and out. Madly the wind whistles by whilst trees bend to let it pass. Clothes wave like tattered flags, flying off to expose dangling breasts as jagged, blinding flashes rumble, tremble and crack amidst the smell of fired smoke and the pelting march of the storm. Before we take a close analysis of each line, let us consider the subject matter or what exactly this poem is about. At its foundation, the poem describes the energy and excitement of a storm. In the first two stanzas, we will see that the poet focuses on the effects of the natural elements of the storm, specifically the wind and the clouds, as the storm is approaching. In the last stanza, the poet shifts his focus to the people in a village and the impact the storm has on them. The storm becomes more intense and the natural elements behave in a way that is dramatic and terrifying. The effect of the storm is powerful and destructive. Consider the title of the poem, An African Thunderstorm. Of course, the title locates the poem not just anywhere, but in Africa. More specifically, this is a description of a thunderstorm approaching an African village. However, the use of the indefinite article an in An African Thunderstorm suggests that the poem is about a generalized event rather than one specific moment in time. Lastly, the word thunderstorm in the title tells us that the poem will be focusing on this natural event. Now that we have considered the subject matter and the title of this poem, let us take a closer look at each line. The first two lines of this poem read, "From the west, clouds come hurrying with the wind." These clouds are described in lines 3, 4, and 5 as turning sharply here and there. The first description is of the rain clouds, which are the first signs of the storm as the clouds are advancing from the west, which is possibly a typical warning that a storm is approaching. The movement of these clouds is described as hurrying and turning. The movement of the clouds in this manner is created by the wind. Note that the use of these present participles, the verbs ending in ing, give the moving clouds a sense of speed and energy. The fact that the words turning and sharply each make up a line in the poem suggests quick changes, which is synonymous with the approaching storm. The approaching clouds that are being blown by the wind are described as moving here and there. This is also reinforcing the abrupt changes of the clouds that are moving and appearing in different parts of the sky. In your mind at this stage, I want you to picture what it is like when a storm is approaching. Think about the wind that starts to blow and how sets of dark and ominous rain clouds start to gather in the sky. Lines 6 to 9 read, like a plague of locusts whirling, tossing up things on its tail, like a madman chasing nothing. Consider the line like a plague of locusts. Well done to you if you recognize this as a simile. Here, the clouds are compared to a plague of locusts. Locusts are known to cause damage to crops, and thus the image here suggests a sense of destruction. Take a look at the words whirling and tossing. The speaker or the observer notes how the clouds are moved by the wind. Note in terms of diction or the poet's choice of words, how all of these present participles or the verbs ending in ing create the speed and energy of the moving clouds. Line 8 reads that the wind is tossing things up on its tail. In this line, we have a metaphor in which the wind is compared to a powerful animal, reinforcing the animal's savagery in the imagery of the locusts mentioned above. Line 9 reads, like a madman chasing nothing. Here we have another simile in which the wind is compared to a madman who is running around but seemingly chasing nothing. This image is synonymous with the frightening unpredictability of the coming storm. Lines 10 to 13 read, pregnant clouds ride stately on its back, gathering to perch on hills like dark sinister wings. Notice how here the speaker describes the clouds moving in a more controlled and purposeful manner. Rather than being tossed and thrown around by the wind, they start gathering together. What we can picture in our minds are clouds moving steadily and in an imposing manner to go and settle on the hills. Consider this line where the clouds are said to be pregnant. Of course, we have personification here. The clouds are personified or given the human quality of being pregnant. This suggests they are heavy with water that will be released onto the land. The clouds are described as riding stately on the wind's back. The word stately simply means majestically. The clouds are said to be gathering to perch on the hills, almost like a dangerous group or a gang where there is safety in numbers. The clouds are described as perching like a bird with dark, sinister wings. Here, the animal comparison is continued, and the clouds are compared to frightening birds of prey. Lines 14 to 20 read, the wind whistles by and trees bend to let it pass. In the village, screams of delighted children toss and turn in the din of whirling wind. Here the speaker suggests the swift or fast pace of the wind, which moves so quickly that it creates a whistling sound. This wind is also so strong that it is able to bend the trees. The personification of the trees being able to bend suggests the power of the wind. The subservience or submissiveness of the trees also suggests that the trees can do nothing except bend to let the wind pass by. From this line, the focus shifts from a wide and general perspective of the landscape to a specific individual village where the children are screaming with delight. Their screams are said to toss and turn in the din of the whirling wind. In other words, the loud, continuous noise the wind makes. The children's delighted screams evoke their pleased excitement and fear as they anticipate the unleashing of the rain. Their yells add to the noise of the wind, and all the sounds are thrown together in loud and varied noises. Lines 21 to 27 read, "Women, babies clinging on their backs, dart about in and out madly. The wind whistles by, whilst trees bend to let it pass." In contrast to the children who are screaming and yelling, the women or the mothers are silent. However, they still act quickly to prepare for the coming storm. Without removing their babies, who must now cling to their mothers' backs, the women race about the village, in and out of huts, making preparations. Picture this in your mind. The wind is whistling and wildly blowing the clouds and the trees. The children are screaming, and now the mother's swift movements together add to this sense of chaos. Lines 28 to 34 state that clothes wave like tattered flags, flying off to expose dangling breasts, as jagged, blinding flashes rumble, tremble, and crack amidst the smell of fired smoke and the pelting march of the storm. Consider the line, "Clothes wave like tattered flags." Well done to you if you notice that in this line we have a simile. The simile of the women's clothes being torn off them like tattered flags is an image of pieces of clothing fluttering in the wind, revealing the bodies beneath. It gives a sense that the storm is all-powerful and ruthless in its ability to be destructive. The description reaches a climax in the last 4 lines of the poem. Forked lightning flashes brightly and frighteningly. The violent sounds of the thunder follow, and the observer or the speaker watches the rain pouring down and steadily approaching the village. The metaphor in the final line compares the storm to an army. This image is created through the use of the words pelting march of the storm. We can make the connection here that both an army and a storm have the ability of being destructive forces. Now that we have completed the line-by-line analysis, let us consider the sound devices present in this poem. Remember, at a high school level, there are 3 sound devices that you need to understand: alliteration, assonance, and onomatopoeia. For more detailed definitions and examples of these sound devices, please take a look at English is Love's Instagram page. Storms are noisy events, and thunderstorms are particularly frightening because of the noise. Throughout the poem, the poet has used a range of sound devices to create the effects of the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. In line 2 of the poem, the word hurrying is an example of onomatopoeia. In line 7, the word whirling is also an example of onomatopoeia. Remember that onomatopoeia is when a particular word imitates the sound that it is describing. In this context, the words hurrying and whirling imitate the sound of the wind rushing through the air. In stanza 2, particularly in line 14, the word whistles is also an example of onomatopoeia. This word imitates the sound of the wind rushing through the air and past the trees. In stanza 3, the words toss and turn are an example of alliteration. Remember that alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds at the beginning of a word in a line of poetry. In this example, the repetition of the T sound suggests the chaotic movement created by the strong wind. The word din and the repeated word whirling are other examples of onomatopoeia. The word din emphasizes the deep noise created by the wind, and the word whirling continues the image of the powerful movement and sound of the violent wind. The word whistles appears again. The repetition emphasizes the ongoing noise created by the wind. Also in stanza 3, we have another example of alliteration with the words flags flying off. We could say that these words conjure up the sounds of the clothes flapping uncontrollably in the wind. The words rumble, tremble, and crack are all examples of onomatopoeia. Rumble is the noise of thunder. Tremble is the shaking effect of the thunder, and crack is the loud, frightening noise when the thunder is very close. Let us consider some of the diction in this poem. Diction refers to the poet's choice of words. Remember, a poet is very deliberate about the words he or she chooses. We as the readers can analyze the poet's choice of words and ask ourselves why the poet would choose such words and whether those words are effective. Because the poem is about physical action in the world, the choice of verbs, which relate to movement, help to build the energy of the storm. For example, in stanza 1, words like hurrying, turning, whirling, tossing, and chasing. In stanza 2, ride, gathering, whistles, and bend. And in stanza 3, words like toss and turn, dart, whistles, wave, flying, rumble, tremble, and crack are all words that contribute towards the movement and the energy of the storm. Words associated with the children and women that emphasize their helplessness are words like children scream, babies are clinging, and the women dart about madly, and their clothes are torn off by the wind and wave like tattered flags. If you are ever asked about this poem's diction in a class assessment or an exam, these are words that you can quote and discuss. Remember that any question on diction means that you need to quote certain words and then discuss those words as your answer. Let us consider the tone and the mood of this poem. Remember that tone refers to the poet's attitude or feelings towards the subject matter at hand. In this context, we can ask ourselves how the poet feels about the storm approaching. With regards to mood, remember that mood refers to how we as readers feel about what we are reading. In other words, how does the poem make us feel when we read the words? In this case, we can ask ourselves how the description of the approaching storm makes us feel. We can say that the tone of this poem is ominous. In other words, it's as if the speaker feels that something bad is going to happen. Oftentimes, tone and diction go hand in hand, because it is ultimately the poet's choice of words that would reveal his or her feelings. Here the diction in stanza 1 with the words plague and madman, words like dark, sinister in stanza 2, and words like rumble, tremble, and crack, madly, jagged, blinding in stanza 3, all contribute to the ominous tone of the poem. The mood of the poem is one that is uneasy and uncomfortable. These words mentioned above not only contribute to the tone, but also to the mood of this poem. Let us consider the form and structure of this poem. An African Thunderstorm is written in free verse. Free verse means that there is no specific rhyme scheme or rhythm to the poem. We could interpret the use of free verse in the sense that it gives the poem the freedom to use words in a way that takes the form of the storm itself. The lines of this poem are all different lengths. It's as if these unpredictable lengths of the lines mirror the unpredictability of the storm. The poem is made up of 3 stanzas. The first 2 are short. This sets out the advancing aspects of the storm and it builds up tension. The third and final stanza is longer and it describes the effects of the storm on people and how they are at the mercy of the power of nature's elements. Lastly, let us take a look at the theme of this poem. We can break the aspect of theme into the literal and figurative meaning of the poem. The literal meaning of An African Thunderstorm is the chaos and destruction of a storm and the helplessness of the people caught in its path. The metaphorical or figurative meaning of this poem is that the storm could be a symbol for the colonization of Africa and how colonialism had a destructive impact on the people of Africa. Thank you for watching this video presentation on the poem An African Thunderstorm by David Rubadiri. Please be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and also to follow English is Love on Instagram at English_is.love for more English content.